Hey everyone, and welcome to my video. Today we're going to be trying out different study techniques. So I wasn't really planning on filming today, which is why I look like this, but today I really just need to get a lot of work done, and so I wanted to use the technique that I've been trying out over the past couple of days, and it's actually the reason why I wanted to do this video. So right now I'm going to do the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique was developed in the 1980s by Francesco Cirillo, ignore the pronunciation. So this technique is really simple, and as I said, I have actually tried this one for the past couple of days, but out of the couple I'm doing, it is the only one I've tried before. So for this technique, it's really simple. All you need to do is write a to-do list and get a timer. Then what you do is you set the timer to 25 minutes, you focus on a task for 25 minutes, and then you get a 5-minute break. After 4 25-minute work things, or Pomodoros as they're called in this technique, you get a longer break, which is 15 minutes to half an hour. Something really interesting that I saw is this recommendation. In the event of an unavoidable disruption, take your 5-minute break and start again. So if my phone went off or I got a phone call, I would take 5 minutes and then I would start again at the 25 minutes. And it is also recommended that you take note of what these distractions are that are causing you to make breaks, so that you can reflect and see how you might want to readjust your next session. So yeah, let's get into the Pomodoro technique. So for my Pomodoro timer, I'm using pomofocus.io. As you can see, it has a timer for 1 Pomodoro, then for a short break, and then for a long break, and it gives you notifications and you can see it counting down here. So let's start the first Pomodoro. On my to-do list for today is to finish my research methods unit 9 and get a good start on my debates in childhood and youth unit 8. So this unit is basically all about doing the data analysis for my research methods assignment. But as you probably saw, I just got a phone call and it was from an 07 number, so I picked up, but it was a spam call. So I'm gonna start my Pomodoro again, as much as I really don't want to, but that is part of the technique. And for reflection for the future, I should probably put my phone on silent. So yeah, I'm going to start the Pomodoro again and get back to my lecture. So the timer just went off for my first 5-minute break, so I'm going to make a coffee. So I just made this coffee. It is just instant coffee I got from Co-op with a teaspoon of Biscoff, coconut milk, and honey to make it sweet. So I'm going to drink this and get on to my next Pomodoro. So I actually just finished that unit. It was actually a really short one compared to what I normally have to do for that module. So yeah, I got that done in like it was probably 1.5 Pomodoros. So I did a quick Google on what to do if you finish a task in the middle of a Pomodoro. Some people say just move on to the next task, but because it was like a big block of tasks in one, I'm gonna take a quick 5-minute break and then move on to getting a really good start for my debates in childhood and youth module. Cool, so I've had my 5-minute break and I've just looked over the content I have to do for my debates in childhood module, and I've been warned by my seminar tutor that the lecture is super interesting but like does a lot of work, and I can definitely see that. I have an 1.5 hours of recorded lectures, then 2 readings, and then questions on top of that. But the topic is education to work transitions, which I'm super interested in. I am maybe going to do the readings with my Pomodoros, and then I will have lunch, and tomorrow when I'm trying out a different technique, I will do the lectures. So for this class, I get to pick between 2 readings, and then I have another compulsory one. So I'm just picking between 2 different readings by reading the abstract. They're about the same length, so I just want to see which one I would be more interested in. So I'm going to be doing Imagining the Future in the Neoliberal Era, Young People's Optimism and Their Faith in Hard Work. So I am 7 pages into my reading and my Pomodoro timer just went off, and yeah, I'm probably just gonna relax, scroll through TikTok for 5 minutes, and then hopefully in the next Pomodoro I will finish this reading and I will be done studying for the day. So I just finished my 5-minute short break. It was actually super nice. I said I was gonna go on my phone during the break, but as you can see, it is such a lovely day outside. So I'm actually really enjoying these breaks, just having a look out the window and just like chilling. So my SD card actually ran out of storage as I was finishing up testing out the Pomodoro technique, but I just wanted to say my thoughts on it. So I am currently obsessed with this technique. I think it is so good and it is such a great way to study. The breaking up of time honestly makes work so much less overwhelming, which I think is so good when all your study is self-directed, especially with university and particularly online university. Also, having those little breaks sort of works like having lots of little rewards during the day and different times where you can recharge so you're not overworking yourself. I found that lots of study techniques are focused on STEM subjects or memorization based subjects, but I think the Pomodoro technique works especially well for humanities subjects like what I do, sociology. And another note about this technique is I think it really stops endless scrolling. So having a 5-minute break, I know if I want to go to the loo, if I want to make a drink, I have to do that. Then I can sit down on my phone, and I also have a timer, so I'm not scrolling endlessly trying to find the perfect time to get off TikTok. I just know I have 30 seconds left and then I'll get off. But the flip side of that is that it can't be used for all types of studying. So for example, if you have an hour-long class, you can't use the Pomodoro technique unless of course it's a pre-recorded class, which is perfect for. And I also just have a list here because the Pomodoro technique does say to take note of the interruptions that disrupt your study. So when I was studying, I had a phone call, some text, and of course my SD card running out of storage all interrupt my studying. To address these, because it says to reflect on these interruptions, I've put my phone on Do Not Disturb, which if I'm trying to really focus or get something done quickly, I tend to do. And also as my SD card, I don't always film myself studying, but when I do, it is slightly distracting. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Pomodoro technique. Okay, so now we're going to be trying the Cornell note-taking technique. So the Cornell note-taking technique was devised in the 1940s by Walter Palk, and he worked at Cornell University in the US. And this technique was sort of introduced and encouraged in his book How to Study in College, and this is another thing I'm focusing on. I'm really looking for study techniques that work in college, because when I'm researching I see so many that would work really well for A-level, but I'm focusing on university-based ones, so this is why I really wanted to try this one out. So for this technique, you divide the page into 4 sections with a title at the top and space to summarize at the bottom. And then between that, you have 2 columns, one that takes up 70% of the page, which is for your general notes, and one that takes up 30% for your Q notes. Your Q column is where you can write questions you might ask, key points, key phrases. So yeah, I've definitely seen people do this before on paper, but I'm going to see if I can do it on Notion and perhaps even find a Notion template for it. So I've just got the page all set up, and I'm going to try this method just to get the first lecture for my Debates on Childhood and Youth module done.
In the 1960s, there were some early statements about the importance of a structural reproduction of inequalities between school
So I've just finished doing my lecture with the Cornell note-taking method, and first I just want to read you a little bit of the summary that I wrote at the end, just condensing my lecture. Social processes like education tend to sort people into similar life circumstances from which they came. This is enhanced for later generations which no longer even earn as much or more than previous generations as was once expected. Vocational education is often ignored by sociology and social policy. That was just a really brief summary of some of the parts of my lecture. It's kind of hard because I don't know about how other universities work or other countries' higher education systems work, but for me I tend to have an overarching topic, but that topic itself could be so many different lectures, so different lectures tend to have different parts and different topics covered within them. So this lecture had about 3 parts, so that was just the summary I did for 2 different parts. So here are my thoughts on the Cornell note-taking method. So for some pros, the summarizing at the end and the Q column I think could be really good for when you're doing work in advance. I often do my work a week before the actual class is done, where I have to discuss that work. So when I'm going back to it, since I've done so much work between then and the class, I don't remember every single thought I had. Being able to run over the Q column or the summary or something like that could really help jog my memory and help make my points more well thought out. I can also see how this would be good for essays, as obviously you can't rewrite a lecture in the essay or really cite from a lecture. I don't often find it important to reread, rewatch, or necessarily like go over my notes before I write an essay because I'm doing so much my own research already. However, if you were just wanting to get the context for an essay, I could really see reading over your summary or reading over the Q column as a good sort of contextual background. However, for everyday use, I sort of found this a bit time consuming and perhaps unnecessary. Like when I was pausing my lecture to go write stuff in the Q column, I really found that I could have just been getting on with the lecture, or taking 5 minutes at the end to write a summary I felt was unnecessary for some certain topics. But yeah, I definitely see how it could be useful for some people and some subjects. What I normally do instead of having a Q column is I put 3 asterisks after, and that way when I'm answering questions at the end, or if there's anything I know I wanted to mention in class, I can just Command F and search through the page for anything I had my 3 asterisks next to. So that way it allows me to see the points I found more interesting or any notes I made. And my last note on the Cornell note-taking method is that I think it focused slightly too much on condensing, and I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing, but perhaps it would be more useful for A-level or for different subjects. Okay, so today I'm going to be trying out the last study technique that I am doing in this video, but if you want to see more, comment down below if there's any I missed. I would love to try this again. So the technique I'm trying out is called the Feynman technique. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It is just basically a really simple approach to self-directed learning, and that's why I really picked it out of all the ones I saw, because obviously with online university, almost all of my learning, actually, yeah, all of my learning is self-directed. So because this technique is specifically for that, I really wanted to try it out. So this was developed by Richard Feynman, who is an American theoretical physicist. And basically the whole idea is, once I've finished doing all the learning, I need to try explain what I've learned, but really simply as if I'm talking to a child or a rubber duck. Then I need to identify gaps in my information by looking at what I really struggle to explain, and then I just go back, fill in those gaps, and that is the technique. So I'm going to get back to my gender tutorial. We are looking at activism, so I'm going to do a bit of that, then I will test this out.
For feminist scholarship and the kind of theorising and the debates that you've engaged with in this module has deliberately and inevitably been oriented towards political arenas and mobilised people to attend Clapham Common on the 13th of March to both kind of mourn the death of Sarah and other women, but also to protest against violence.
Okay, so I just finished my first lecture for my gender unit on activisms. It was really nice about the Feynman technique because it's not constantly interrupting my actual lecture process, rather it's just something you can add on at the end. So I'm going to read to you the really simple summary I wrote, which is meant to be in really simple language. I don't think I got it perfectly, there's a couple complicated terms in there. Activism is the practice of doing social action for change. Feminist activism is often viewed in waves. Second wave was in the 60s, third wave in the 90s and early 2000s, and now fourth wave feminism. Fourth wave feminism in particular is known for using digital activism. But activism also occurs in other spaces. For example, feminist organisations for other social issues such as BLM, and on a personal level. However, viewing feminist activism in waves assumes there is only one story to feminist progress, and ignores other points of view and experiences. So that was my simple explanation. I think it was simple enough for a really theoretical topic, but obviously it's meant to be how you would explain it to a child, but I tried my best and it's my first go at it. And then after that I went back and read through my lecture notes really quickly, and I noticed I left out a part about direct and radical action, which is just about sit-ins, protests, strikes, etc. For me that was kind of implied, but it's good to actually have that in there because obviously it's implied now, I just did the lecture. If I was explaining to someone else, it wouldn't be. So yeah, I really like that about the technique, the sort of going back at the end. So my thoughts on the Feynman technique are basically, teaching is a really great way to learn. I did this so much at A-level and I think it's really useful, especially for exam style assessment. And all the other pros I said for the Cornell note-taking method are involved here. Going back before you write an essay or before class just to get the context and to be more informed before you start talking or writing. The only thing I didn't love about this is for university it could be seen as unnecessary, but I think in terms of rankings I do like it a bit more than the Cornell method. So yeah, in conclusion, this was so interesting and I really love trying out different study techniques, and it really got me to be more critical about the way that I study. I really hope this was useful for you, and even if some of these methods aren't incredibly useful to me, I hope they might be useful to you, or at least give you further understanding about throughout the process of studying. Personally, I love the Pomodoro technique. I have been using it and will continue to use it. I think it's such a great way to break up time, and I think I might involve writing some sort of summary more often, as I've been liking that as a way to solidify my information, and I do like the idea of going over it before class so I know more what I'm talking about when I've done the work perhaps a week prior. So if you have any more study techniques you'd like me to try out, please leave them down below, and if you did like this video and found it interesting, please do like, and I'd love to see more of you, so please subscribe. And yeah, thank you again so much for watching.